fear of death keeps people in bondage because they're not sure of what's going to happen to them after they die. And that is a major issue for a lot of people. They don't want to talk about death while they're alive, generally, because it's not a good thing to think about for them, because they're not sure of the future. If you're sure of the future, then it's an issue that is one you can talk about without it having any negativity about it. Now, I'm aware that most people aren't aware of the immortality that came to light through Jesus and the gospel, and overcoming death and death having no sting. So a lot of people, particularly religious people, expect to die, but they expect a promotion when they die to a better place. That's, you know, and a lot of people believe those who don't have a relationship with their religious figure will end up in another place, which will be a bad place. So you have all of that concept. And of course, people don't want to think about that, so they don't want to talk about any of it. So for me, if people do die physically, and I'm aware people are dying physically every day by the hundreds of thousands probably, it's because they're unaware of the true reality of their identity and how that is supposed to be immortal. Now, of course, if people die physically, it's the physical aspect which is dead. Their soul and spirit goes on. That doesn't die. You know, they are essentially made out of spiritual material. So their spirit returns to God. If they don't know Jesus, then their spirit turns to God and their soul goes somewhere else into the fire of refining and purification, until they come to a point where they choose to come back into a reconciled state through what Jesus did. Those who do know God and have a relationship with him, their spirit soul goes to be in his presence. And they then are on that part of their journey. Now, that part of their journey for them is because they've not embraced the immortality of their body. If you embrace the immortality of your body, then you won't have to die. But that doesn't mean that this part of your destiny may come to an end one day, and you may transition to another ongoing destiny state, which may be more like Enoch or Elijah or whatever that means. And that might be a changed body. But I do believe the longer we stay here in a physically immortal state, the more our bodies will be transfigured. I think there's a transfigured state in which something is taking place which will exclude death from the body, but also reveal life in abundance and what that is, which is a capacity which is beyond the physical state that we currently live in, probably, you know, and that might mean the ability for our whole being to dwell in the restored relationship of heaven and earth. Because if everything is going to be restored, then God's original intention for how heaven and earth related, or the spiritual and physical realms related, will be returned to what it was when Adam was able to walk in both. So one day we may well be clothed with glory again, and our spirit may have a more external or suit on the surface, if you like, covering for our physical body, which will enable us to live in both realms as Adam did. So I think things will change. When someone dies, I'm not afraid to use dead, but you can use other terms, transition or Passover, you know, depending on who they are and what their understanding is. Essentially, I will always look at, it's just the physical body that's come to the end of its time here. They will get another transformed body anyway, you know, a resurrected body one way or another. And I'm sort of thinking, until the realms get restored, then no one actually really needs the ability to do, unless God wants them to have that now. So I'm not really sure where we are on that. You know, it could be that might be something that we transform into and are transfigured into. Therefore, we will have sort of what we call supernatural abilities, or abilities way beyond what is presently capable of for our body. at the moment, those in the realms of heaven living as a cloud of witnesses don't actually need to be on earth, because they have lost that physical body. Now, apparently they can show up here.
Right.
So their spirit is able to manifest at times. So who knows what it will fully be like when everything is restored, but it will be how God intended it originally. So, you know, I don't sort of have too much issue with using the word death, as long as people understand that we're talking about physical death.
Okay.
It's like, which is unnecessary in one sense, if you know how to live in an immortal state, which is more of a state of mind, you know, that actually our physical body comes into alignment with the truth of who we really are. You know, the cloud of witnesses was filled with all sorts of people, including many of our loved ones that we may have some connection with or not. You know, and I have seen some of my family members in that realm, met my dad there. I've also seen a number of my daughter's children or miscarriages that they've had, and engaged with them there. So I have experience of engaging with people in that realm, but I only met my dad the once, and that seemed to bring a closure that I didn't need to go thinking I got to go talk to them all the time, in a sense, because they are also in a transfigured state then. All of the negative memories of their previous life here have been changed and transformed. So they wouldn't want you going there talking to them about all the negative things that happened on earth, you know, because they probably don't have memory of them in a negative sense. So, you know, who does it bring comfort to, you know? Yes, if you've lost somebody, but you need to deal with the grief and emotion that Jesus promises to carry, so that you can transition yourself to the change of losing somebody. Otherwise, you get stuck in them not crossed over, and therefore you can be trying to visit them, which is why people get into seances and other stuff, because they want to know where their loved one went to. You know, they're afraid of what happened to them, and that's fear-based,
right?
You know, which is not good. And you know, being drawn into the sort of seances and all that stuff is obviously not a healthy thing to get fixated on. But Christians who do engage with relatives in the cloud of witnesses may also start to live more in that realm than actually in this realm, which is also a danger if they're doing it out of the wrong motive, you know, which is all possible. You know, people can be so grief stricken that they're unwilling to accept the reality of what's happened and live in the past, therefore, you know, which is not a good thing either. So we need to find it all healthily in our relationship with God, and embrace, you know, the reality of it in all aspects. You know, now if someone died that I didn't know where they were going because I was unsure, I could go and check out where they might be, just to have, and if they were not in the cloud of witnesses and they're somewhere else, then they can give me, I go preach to them and help them out of that somewhere else to become part of the cloud of witnesses. So, you know, I would ask the question, you know, but I want to be living from a heavenly perspective on earth and making sure that I'm outworking heaven on earth through me, rather than being focused too much on what the cloud of witnesses are up to, you know.
Okay.
But, you know, Jesus gave me permission to go and preach to all my generational lines, who were in the fire of God's love and needed the message of love to be preached to them so they could come out of there. So I had that message to be able to preach, eventually learning how to engage them. And it's quite complicated, because they're all broken, fragmented, and they're tormented and in anguish for their own choices generally, you know. But a lot of people, less people go there than people think. because I believe, and Jesus has talked to me about visiting every single person on their deathbed at their last moment, offering them the opportunity, if they've not received it previously, to enter into the realms of the Father through him.
Mm.
Most people accept that. Some people choose not to, for whatever reason. And that could be various reasons, religious reasons, upbringing reasons. I mean, if you're a Muslim, you're going to find it more difficult to accept Jesus just because you're programmed not to.
Right.
And those who feel guilty and condemned about their life might not feel worthy to accept Jesus because they have not done enough to earn it. Some people feel that way, you know, so all sorts of people are programmed by different ways of thinking around the whole issue. But fear of death is a bondage.
Mm-hmm.
And abundance of life is focused in perfect love, and that casts out fear. Hi everyone, we're starting a Patreon page, patreon.com/freedomarc, and we would like to invite you to partner with us in taking the message of God's unconditional love, limitless grace, triumphant mercy to a bigger global audience.